Hi everyone, Brian from Bear Bull Traders here. Sunday, July 28th. We've got July almost in the books here. Hard to believe. Summer's kind of half over, at least in this part of the world. So anyway, let's take a look at the week that was and look ahead, see what we got going on. We actually do have a lot of things going on this coming week. Good reason to be a little bit cautious going into this week. Markets have been strong. Let's take a look here. Bull 73% index. You can see lots of stocks above their 200-day, two-thirds of them, over two-thirds or almost two-thirds above their 50 days. So markets are looking strong right now. You know, we're partway through the earnings seasons. We've had some good earnings. We've had some bad earnings. Results, Amazon, you can see here, Friday, Google reported good earnings. Amazon not so great, disappointing a little bit. So that's been a little bit of a mixed bag there. Let's just see here what the groups look like. And not surprising, technology's up. I think the Q's made a new high this week. S&P as well. And you can see here what did well. So financials are doing fairly well here recently in the services stocks. But risk on trades, utilities for the week, the risk off trade not doing as well. So you can see where the money's flowing right now back into the risk assets. So what do we got coming up this week? Lots of different announcements, economic indicators like consumer sentiment, mortgage rates, applications, stuff like that. I think there's a pretty full calendar coming up this week on those items. Plus, we got all these earnings here that were outlined in the Bear Bull email that goes out on Sunday, just sort of a week in review as well. So you can see here we post our earnings coming up the next week. Apple, AMD, Beyond Meat, that'll be an interesting one given the performance of that stock. Crazy valuation. Grubhub, FireEye in the cybersecurity space. Got a bunch of, I guess we got a bunch of pharmaceuticals, Gilead, Humana, Amgen, all reporting. Square is up near its high. It kind of shrugged off the PayPal bad news, and it's pretty close to its all-time high. Some oil company, Exxon. Yeah, so we got again, we got a pretty heavy earnings calendar. Merck, Pfizer, Grubhub. So pretty busy earnings calendar next week. Let's just see what the indexes have done and what we got active and what we got on watch here. Let's start out looking at the 10-year, the treasuries. You can see it's just kind of hanging around here, waiting for that Fed announcement that's coming, I believe, on Wednesday. Will they cut? Won't they cut? How much will they cut? It's all up in the air, although I'm pretty sure a cut is baked into this. It's just how much they're going to cut, quarter point, half point. So the Dow, not quite breaking out to a new high last week. One thing that did kind of warm up a little bit was the IWM, the small caps, finally catching a little bit of a bid here. You can see here they're well off their highs from back in August 2018. I tried to break out here, failed, came way back to some support that was back in early 2018, and then did a V reversal there. So be interested to see if this thing follows through next week, if these small cap stocks follow through. Of course, we can play that with TNA, and I'll be keeping an eye on TNA next week. The Qs, let's take a look at the weekly since we're looking at the week in review. Here we go, breaking out to new high, just a little bit off the high of the week. Pretty still a bull market, still going strong. In the technology space, SPY, S&P 500, same story. Breaking out, still going strong. RSI still going up, little bit volume building. Trend is your friend, and it looks like the trend is higher. And here's something that actually is also quite interesting. The dollar is strengthening up here. You can see here it's starting to break out to a It's already broken out to an all-time high. Not an may not be an all-time high, but certainly a high for the last year or so. Take a look at it on a weekly. Yeah, you can see here it really is really starting to break out here. And I think it's going to head higher, although I wouldn't be making any bets one way or another until we hear what the Fed has to say about where their interest rate cuts are going. So, and the VIX, I'm guessing, let's take a look at the VIX again, back down here, right back at this level of support. So we'll be watching to see if that holds. And again, it's going to depend on, I think, a lot on the Fed, because people are just waiting and to see what they're going to say and what they're going to do. So here's some actives. You know, I don't have a lot of stuff in my swing trade right now. I'm just kind of with earnings. I don't like to hold stocks through earnings, so I try to stay away from that. Plus, so market's really, in my mind, a bit extended. Doesn't mean it can't go higher, but I'm still looking for opportunities when they show themselves. And I saw gold. It was definitely looking like it was making some toppy action here. So we've been in nugget for quite a while. And then I just flipped to dust. Last week, I got in around 8:30. Target is 9. Didn't quite get there on Friday. So we'll be watching that because the trend is your friend, as we always like to say, and it looks like we might be coming up to a trend line here. Let's take a look at this. So we haven't broken this trend line. So the trend line is still, price of gold still on an uptrend, even though we've had this bit of a pullback, which was what I was expecting here, some bottoming action. So let's pay pretty close to this. I mean, if we can break out here on dust is the inverse of the gold miners, so it's a way to play the price of gold. If we do get a breakout here, I'll be probably selling a little bit more if we break through 9, and then I'll hold for over 10 if we actually get there. What else we've got? This is nugget. You see here, this is again a sort of a double top here. It's why I decided to take a short, which nugget is the opposite of dust. So you think that gold is going to go up in price, you play nugget. And so long in the gold miners, and this is a beta ETF too, by the way. It's 3 times, so you have to be kind of cautious with your entries, because it does move 3 times more than the actual underlying price of the assets. And if you think price of gold's going down, you play dust, which is what we're in now. Don't know why PayPal's there. It shouldn't be in that list. We will talk about it in a minute. And SBUX was one I played on Friday. I got in around 96 and change, and I said our first target price was 99.50. This was basically just a momentum play to 100. When stocks get up close to 100, they tend to go there, and I actually got out 99.50, and I'll be holding the rest, and I expect it'll probably go to 100 in the next day or so. So I'll be watching that Monday to get out, and some more of that on Monday. But good earnings on SBUX drove that up there, and that's when I jumped in during the day. And let's see what we got on watch here. Baba's kind of interesting. You know, it's been up a little bit on this news that they're going to China, the trade delegation from the U.S. going back to China. And the White House did play this down on Friday, saying not to expect anything, which, I don't think anybody was overly surprised. Issues are complicated, and I don't think anything's going to get resolved in the near term. But this did pop up a little bit on the news, so we'll see where that goes. Baidu is just chopping along here. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, but it just doesn't seem to want to go anywhere. Facebook had some interesting price action, definitely a rejection from the 205, and even though we had a strong day in technology on Friday, really this candle, kind of an indecision candle Friday, lower volume. RSI looks like it wants to head lower, might be a good candidate to write some call options, write some 205s for the end of next week. Again, I just want to be cautious because you don't know how the Fed's announcements are going to affect the overall market, but could look at doing something like that on Monday, write some Friday call options, 205s, collect some premium, and just hope it doesn't break out above the 205 level. But currently it looks like we've got a double top put in there. You can see here what happened last time we had a double top, sold off. Chinese internets overall down, interesting, even though there was that trade delegation. PayPal, this is where I wanted to put PayPal in my, on a watch. Thursday they reported, I think the earnings were pretty, obviously were disappointing. But you see here, last time it sold off back in June, it came right back up. This does seem to be holding this sort of 115 level and this 50-day moving average. So I actually might try taking a trade on Monday. We'll see if we can get it around under 115, maybe 114.50. That'll give us a good risk to reward, and look for a target back at least to 118, 119, sort of in this area, which is where I think we'll have some at least initial resistance. So may play this for a little bit of a bounce. Friday it looked like it held, so I'm just going to be watching that on Monday. Silver, again, poor man's gold, topping action here, and we'll see if this is just a pause in a trend that's going to take us higher, or if it's just going to chop along here, but definitely some topping action here as well on silver. Square, this was, I think, one of our moderators, Kurt, took this, has had this as a swing trade. I believe he got in back down here on this pullback, and it did pull back a little bit on the PayPal news, and then it just popped back right back up again. The only thing to be worried about with Square, it is reporting, I believe, at the end of the week, so a little bit of caution there about holding Square through earnings, because you just don't know where. If they're going to come out with something good, if they're going to have good earnings, and then come out with some bad guidance, I mean, that'll take a stock down too. So yeah, be careful about that. Tia was watching it, just a V reversal. It just, unfortunately, not a great price action unless you just took a flyer here, and I just didn't, though. Unfortunately, I missed that because I was watching it. UNG, again, I always like to look at natural gas, sometimes play that, and you can see here it's right back down to a prior level of support, and we may actually bounce here, so I might take a look at that. Oil just kind of chopping here. It is forming a little bit of a pendant here, so depending on if there's any kind of geopolitical news, yeah, there may be some price action in USO if it breaks out of this narrow trading range here. Volume pretty meager. RSI is not really saying anything other than it's trading into a range. Same with MACD. The XLE selling off a bit again. The energy stocks have not been a great place to have your money. Financials, I said when we were looking at the groups, so we're doing well. Financials breaking out here, and this looks like a chart that might take us higher. But again, I would hold off on doing anything on financials until we heard from the Fed later this week. And that's a bit it. Let's take a look at TNA quickly. This is the small cap ETF. Again, you have to be careful because this is a 3 times ETF, so it'll move 3 times the amount of the underlying asset. Kind of see here, we're up into an area of congestion back in this early 2019. We're right back to these levels of prior resistance where they rejected. So we'll see if it see on Monday what it does. But again, we have to be careful next week. particularly going into this Fed news. So that's about it. Like I said, I would say in a nutshell, let's all be careful, and we'll see how the market reacts to this Fed announcement that's coming midweek. Keep your trades, your swing trades small, I think, until we find out, get some more information, and then we'll go from there. So we'll see everyone in the Bear Bull trading room in the morning, Monday morning. This is my book, How to Swing Trade. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's on Amazon. And yeah, so have a great rest of the weekend. Whatever you're going to do, stay safe, and see you Monday morning. Bye for now.